My name is Lucy Findlay and I am the Managing Director of the Social Enterprise Mark CIC, and we are the first, we were the first organisation to set up an accreditation scheme worldwide for social enterprises, and we've been going now for over 10 years. We had our 10th birthday at the beginning of this year, but we were actually a project that started out a bit like C. We came out of the regional body for the South West, which doesn't exist anymore, but we were a kind of the social enterprise that came out of the Southwest body for social enterprises. And we went, first of all, we were based in the Southwest, then we went national, and then we went international. So we've got a whole heritage of the experience of accreditation across the world. And in fact, I was launching the Social Enterprise Mark in Ireland last night as part of Social Enterprise Day's celebrations. So I thought I'd start with the definition of social enterprise, and this is where we started with the Social Enterprise Mark, because I think what a lot of people find is when they try and describe themselves as a social enterprise, there is a kind of blank that goes off in people's eyes if you ask at a party, what is a social enterprise? You know, it is quite difficult to explain, and everybody else has, people have different interpretations of what a social enterprise is. But essentially, it's a business with strong social and environmental mission that reinvests the majority of its profits for the benefit of its mission. And the way that I quickly describe it is that it's a business that is doing good, but doesn't have shareholders that are taking loads of profit out of it. So essentially, that is where we came to. We used a version of that definition to develop our standards for what became the Social Enterprise Mark. And it's really good to have Nikki on the call here as well, because she was absolutely instrumental to developing those standards. So just to run through what the key characteristics are of a social enterprise as per the Social Enterprise Mark. So they have to address a social or an environmental problem. Most of those profits are reinvested back in towards that, addressing that environmental or social problem. They're trading rather than relying on donations. And we have a definition of trading that is quite broad, and we have a whole catalogue of ways in which we interpret that. And we have a panel of experts that sits behind the Social Enterprise Mark to make judgments on things like trading and some of these characteristics. So Nikki sits on our certification panel. They also have to be independent of the state and to a large degree independent of other types of organisations that are led by shareholders, well, profits for shareholders, shall we say. And they also have to prove that they are making a difference. So those key characteristics are what are behind our criteria when we make a judgment about whether a social enterprise hits our definitions. So as I've described earlier, we are the International Accreditation Authority. There are other accreditations out there in different countries. So for instance, Australia has their own accreditation scheme, as does Canada, which is linked very closely to the Bi-Social campaign of which was first set up by SE UK, but there's now an international Bi-Social campaign. And we have a direct partner that is running the social enterprise mark in the US. So we have set up a franchise stroke licensing agreement with a US authority. And the reason why the US came to us was because of our experience of this. And I was talking to the Australian social enterprise mark earlier on this week. And what they are seeing is increasingly that they are way ahead of us in terms of what is going on with social value in Australia. And the procurement agenda is really exploding. In the UK, I think that social enterprise has kind of found it quite hard to butt in, if you like, into the social value space, and it's been quite hard to have a dialogue with the government about how social enterprise actually demonstrates social value. Whereas in Australia, the government actually used the accreditation and helped set up the accreditation and require contractors to use social enterprise as a means to create social value. So they have a whole public procurement program that requires procurers to actually look for social enterprise as a means of delivery. And in this country, our government has been very backwards around a lot of that stuff and have just said it's, you know, they are quite agnostic about what the legal form or the type of business is, and have been much more less directional, I think. So, but interestingly, as a result of that, there has been a huge explosion of interest in how social enterprises are get into the supply chain of businesses, etc. And they are encountering now problems with you know, quite sharp practices, and the need for accreditation is becoming more and more evident, and the same experience is happening in the US. And interestingly, we've just been having conversations with some of the corporates who are also beginning to say we actually need to know that this organization is doing what it's saying it does. So just as a means of understanding a bit more about the services that we offer, we have a range of services. We started off with the social enterprise mark, which was our first product, and that the badge for that you'll see in the slide. You've probably seen that one around a bit. That product is a more, as I would say, a more of a you've either got it or you haven't. We have a 3-year process for those organisations that have the mark. They have to be reapproved every 3 years with a light touch in between time. But we have more recently developed other products. So secondly, we developed the Social Enterprise Gold Mark, which is about business excellence, and a number of organisations have applied for the Business Excellence Mark, which has been particularly taken up by universities actually that want to prove that they are good in the social enterprise sphere. And additional to proving your social enterprise credentials that I described around the characteristics earlier on in the talk, the Social Enterprise Gold Mark also looks at things like the way in which the organisation engages stakeholders, how it engages with how it engages with the staff that are in that organisation. Does it treat them ethically? How does it consult them? And goes into more detail about social and economic and environmental impact. So that's our kind of the top end. Then we more recently have developed the aspiring social enterprise mark, which is a route to the social enterprise mark for those organisations that want to reach the standard of the social enterprise mark, but are unable to reach the trading requirement because the organisation has to be able to prove that it is trading at 50%. And we've also worked with DWP and the Sustainable Steering Group to develop a specialist product, which is for those social enterprises that primarily employ disabled people, and that is to enable primarily DWP, once they get themselves sorted out, to be able to invest in organisations and subsidise places for those organisations that are providing employment for disabled people. So just to run through that systematically, this is how it's set out in terms of the journey for the social enterprise for all of our products. So it has to be our criteria for all of them have to be independence, clear social objectives, a majority of profits being dedicated to social purpose, and what we call an asset lock. And then moving in to the next level, they must be able to demonstrate sufficient trading and be able to demonstrate social impact. And then moving on to the gold mark, those are the other areas in which the organisation has to show additional evidence. And the gold mark process is slightly different in that the organisation develops an action plan, and it's more of an iterative process. So what are the benefits of accreditation? First of all, it's about the credibility of the organisation and showing that actually you are doing what you say on the tin, and that is important for things like supply chain and procurement issues. There are obviously organisations out there that talk about being a social enterprise, but this shows that you've actually been approved. It's important as a differentiator, and I'll go on to talk a little bit more about that. But quite often I say that social enterprises hide their light under a bushel, and actually social enterprises need to be talking more about how they make a difference and that they are led by making a difference, and the mark shows that. We also help the organisation articulate their social impact through our service that comes with the accreditation process. So we create a social impact statement which can be used as a way in which the organisation can easily help to articulate how it is that they're making a difference. It helps you to get noticed through our directory, and it gives assurance. It's an external verification which has been around now for over 10 years and is known about. It's also a business development tool, and in particular with the social enterprise aspiring mark, we make sure that we help the organisation to reach the standards. So we actually give support for the organisation and recommendations. And with the gold mark especially, we do give an action planning service and advice on how the organisation can improve. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about competing and collaborating, which is always a challenge, I think, in the social enterprise arena. I know that this was one of the issues that had been highlighted in the comments that came through. Sometimes it feels quite uncomfortable as social enterprises to be competing, because we naturally are collaborators, but at the same time we are businesses, and so competition is a healthy thing, but we have to understand where it is that we can collaborate for the best. So it's about the social enterprise mark helps to place you in that position where you show that you are a business that is socially and environmentally motivated, but you are wanting to operate in a business environment. And quite interestingly, yesterday we had a conversation with Nigel Kershaw from The Big Issue, and he said, you have 6 seconds to make up your mind about an organisation or about a person if you're in the room, and that obviously is a challenge. So being able to articulate quickly how you are making a difference, rather than having to go through your social impact report when you talk to somebody, the social enterprise mark helps to make up that person's mind, because obviously it's a quick way of seeing that that organisation has got credibility and it is a bona fide social enterprise. The other issues I think are about being able to articulate why you are a social enterprise, and what the social enterprise is part of your USP. So I've heard social enterprises go on the radio where they are talking about the difficulties that they've encountered over COVID, and they just sound like any old regular business. But if they were able to articulate, actually, we are a social enterprise, we are making a difference to our community, I think that's a really important message at this time where obviously resources are tight and people are looking to see businesses that are actually going to help us out of this period. There was a question that came up from one of the participants, which was about how do I protect my idea. We had exactly this issue as the social enterprise mark. Your intellectual property is yours, and you need to value it, and you need to put a price on that. But obviously there is a balance there when you're dealing in with vulnerable groups. So it may be that you need to look at some kind of cross subsidization model, but at the end of the day we are selling services, and if your organization doesn't exist, you can't create any social value. So we have a cross subsidization model within the social enterprise mark, and we do charge for services if we are doing things like consultancy. The challenge, I think, is that it's very hard to actually protect an idea, and we have found that organisations have taken our standards. So, some of those other organisations internationally, they've taken our standards and just run with it and developed their own ideas. And you can't really stop that. But what we have stopped, what we have done is we have copyrighted or design marked our own logo, so people can't use our logo. But actually the idea is that is very hard to mitigate for. So yeah, it's an interesting area, I think, for social enterprise. So I've talked a bit about using your social enterprise status in CSR, procurement, etc., and articulating your values and ethos. So what do we do in the social enterprise mark itself to help you articulate your social impact? And this slide is really to talk through the process that we go through with all of our social enterprise mark holders. We obviously go into much more detail with the social enterprise gold mark, but if you go on to our directory on the website, you will see the answers to these questions for every single one of our social enterprise mark holders. And I think obviously Nikki ran a session about measuring your social impact and social value. We've tried to break it down into really easy steps, and we help organisations run through this process. So these 4 questions: what are the main differences you have aimed to make? What are the actions you've taken to deliver these aims? What specific outcomes and benefits have been created? And how is your profit used to deliver social outputs and add social value? Those are the steps that we take people through. We talk them through it. We can go through it with people on the phone. And then once those questions are asked, we can create your social impact statement. And those statements have been used by social enterprises for their website, for their comms materials. We take, you know, if that organisation has done a social impact report, a lot of that information is already there, so we don't need to answer all of those questions. They can just submit the existing information that they've got. So this is how it shows on our website. You can see some examples there of what it looks like. We try and make it really clear and fairly short, really, so that anybody that comes on the directory can actually see that that organisation has not only been approved, but they are able to articulate the difference that they are making. So maximising your impact of the accreditation, obviously there's that piece of work that we go through, but we do other things to share things like Nikki's toolkit to help them communicate their credentials and take full advantage of their accreditation. But we have a couple of top tips about how the organisation can make use of their social enterprise mark. So things like displaying the website and comms, displaying the plaque if you're actually in an office at the moment, which a lot of us aren't. And perhaps I should have one behind me as part of our comms. And then using your mark when you're in a bid, using your mark to say, you know, because we are as good as our mark holders are in terms of articulating that and talking about it. So you know your procurement people, and so the more you talk about the mark, the more effective it will be. And mentioning the mark in your tenders and bids. And we do have feedback that people have used the mark in this way, and that our mark holders have felt that it's the main advantage of the mark is that the fact that it's helped articulate as an organisation the way in which the organisation is trying to make a difference more succinctly. So I think I've done just about half an hour of talking at you. This is a picture in the corner here of us in Ethiopia. That seems like a long time ago. It was a year ago when we were at the Social Enterprise World Forum. You can get hold of us through both our website and our direct inquire about the Social Enterprise mark. So I will now stop sharing the screen and open things up for questions, Jane.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Lucy, ever so much. That was really useful. So yeah, we've got a bit of time if anyone wants to ask, specific questions, maybe about your organisation or about, articulating impact, or questions about the mark, if anyone's got any questions.
On silence.
Silence.
Can I go, Jane?
Yeah, of course, Fiona.
I always have questions. I'm sorry that I always have questions.
No, it's good.
I always have questions. I'm trying to develop what the mission statement looks like for hidden capacities, and I've talked to lots of different people so that it actually means something. And words are really difficult because when you have a vision and it feels so amazing, and then you have to put it into these, 3D concepts of words, it's really hard. Do you have any advice, because you have a lot of experience in terms of social impact? How big should a mission statement be? Because the more feedback I get, the bigger it gets, and then the bigger it gets, people go, no, it needs to be short and punchy. And sometimes I don't really know. I know that's maybe not connected, but it kind of is, because it's the starting point in terms of a startup, and the mission is then to become accredited. So I guess it's a baby step, but it's still a step I'd love to fill up there.
No, I feel for you there, Rhiannon, and the more you talk to people, the longer the thing gets. Yeah, and I think it's a bit like when I've been to a number of presentation skills seminars where they've asked you to sort of like explain what you do in 10 minutes, explain what you do in 5 minutes, and then explain what you do in 2 minutes. And it gets harder and harder, but what it does is it makes you think about the essence of what it is that you're trying to do. So I would go with the shorter version, because you need to be able to remember it, and you need to be able to have that in the back of your mind as your reason for being, and you need to be able to articulate that to your stakeholders and your customers. So it's really important that is understandable, and it's not full of jargon as well. That's the other thing as social enterprises. We tend to get very hung up and, full of jargon. So if you can explain it to somebody at a party, they might go, oh my God. But, if you can explain it to the person on the street, although we're not even allowed to talk to people on the street now, are we? As you go past. So this is my mission statement. Have a go, and or if you've got friends, just test it and see whether or not they understand what it is that you're talking about. I don't know, others might have experience. I know probably Nikki's done lots of workshops on mission statements and business development, so she might be able to give you some other tips as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I totally agree with what Lucy said there. I think the only thing I would say, I mean, Rhiannon was at the impact measurement session yesterday, and I think once you're clear about what your impact is, then what difference you're making for people, lead on that. I think people often want to talk about what their organisation is and does. I think it's what people are interested in is what happens for the people that you're helping and what impact you're making for them. Start with the people that you're trying to, or the activity that you're trying to help. Don't try and describe your organisation, and I think too many people fall into that trap. But definitely keep it short.
It interplays with your our mission, so that's kind of helpful that you're sort of guiding in that direction already. Thank you.
I was just going to say also, I'm a marketing professional is my thing. So I would say also what Lucy and Nikki were saying is if you focus on what those real like light bulb, statements are, what is that change that you deliver? And if you imagine writing your, for your website or whatever, if you start with those like profound, we make this change for whatever users, for example, then you can then say, and we've been existing for 3 years, and we do this and do that. Because I think people, same with like presentations, they get hung up with, well, we've been established for this amount of time, and we have a board, and we have some trustees, and before you know it, you've lost people. So I think definitely try and start with those real strong statements from a sort of marketing point of view as well.
Thank you.
So,
Could I just come in there as well, Jane, if that's okay?
This is wonderful. Thank you.
Just to build, sorry, I'm Sophie. I'm also part of the team at Social Enterprise Mark. Just to build on what Jane was saying, really, that I know when we speak to our assessor, Richard, who is the one that looks at the social impact evidence that comes from applicants and mark holders, the key thing he says is not all just about sort of stats and data. It's asking the question, so what does that mean? So it's sort of it is the evidence, but it's also sort of translating that into what does that actually mean in practical terms. So like Jane said, what is the difference that you're making is the key thing. And it's sort of focusing on what the people you're talking to, what would they be interested in? So what are you doing for that, for those people?
Thank you. Thank you.
any other questions? Or have we got any social enterprise mark holders who want to maybe share their experience of how they've gone for the process and how they're using their mark? I know we had some mark holders, whether they're here on the call.
I'm not sure.
I can see we've got Sam. Sam is from one of the organisations that has our specialist disability employment mark. So it's a little bit different to the social enterprise mark.
Because the social enterprise disability employment mark, she has no microphone to be able to speak, but I'll talk on behalf of Sam. But yeah, the social enterprise disability employment mark is kind of, I did allude to it. We haven't gone through a full assessment process with our social enterprise disability employment mark holders, although we do have case studies on our website about them, because we're waiting for the process to be confirmed with DWP. And as you can imagine, DWP are currently in a state of flux with everything going on with COVID and the recovery process. Although Sam and I sit on the supported businesses steering group, which is trying to steer DWP through the process of the next steps with what's going on with those businesses. But we've been concentrating on actually getting some money out of the door for organisations like Sam's, to make sure that they still exist, because it's been quite a tough time for those organisations that are employing people that are obviously shielding and unable to come into work due to COVID. So we've kind of put a bit of a halt on processes with regards to that at the moment because of the priorities of COVID.
Thanks, Lucy. Any other questions? No, but maybe we're all feeling a bit zoomed out. It's Friday and it's other things booked in as well. Oh, hello. Hi, Adele.
I just want to say it's really useful information. Thank you. And I've been typing notes for my exec whilst you've been talking. So it's really good. Thank you.
Where are you from, Adele?
East Coast Community Healthcare.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So you are one of our mark holders. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
In these difficult times, you know, it's good to meet our mark holders virtually. So yeah, we haven't actually run any remote events yet, because we've been looking at how everybody else is doing it, because it's well, I mean, we've done a few sort of basic webinars, but we've been looking at kind of whether or not we'll run our conference remotely as well. Who knows with where things are going and where we'll be at, because we normally run our conference in June, when I suspect things will be not quite up and running by then. So I expect we'll have to get into this world of virtual events quite soon, but we're kind of trying to resist it, aren't we, Sophie?
Hopefully the vaccine will be having a major impact by June, and we can start to see some normal life coming back.
Yes, I hope so too.
It's looking promising.
Yes, it is. Well, it looks like there's going to be quite a few, doesn't it? So that's good.
Okay.
Any other questions or anything else you wanted to share, Lucy, before we wrap up?
No. Well, obviously there's our website, but also you can follow my blog, because I regularly blog on different things. My latest blog is about accessing loan finance, emergency loans, because one of the things that we've been doing throughout the process has been throughout the crisis, has been working with the other national social enterprise agencies to try and help social enterprises through the crisis. So we jointly lobbied for money for social enterprise, which we were successful in getting, albeit that I understand a lot of that funding all has to be spent by March, which is a bit of a challenge in many ways. But the bit that I've been working on has been about loan finance and trying to get businesses to apply for loans, because basically, you know, if you're bored and you have a viable business, you can get a bounce back loan. But the challenge at the moment is that the banks are being a bit of a pain, because they need to if you're with Unity or with another bank that doesn't provide these loans, you have to apply for another bank account, and a lot of the banks have closed down for those. So we're kind of trying to lobby on that, but I think that more social enterprises are in a good position to be able to access that source of funding, and you don't have to pay any interest for a year. So if you've got a short-term cash flow problem, that is something to maybe have a look at, but you will need to get a move on with it, because it does take quite a lot of time to process. We started our process in July, and we've just done the paperwork this week, so it's a bit of a long haul, and I'm hoping that some of the banks will open up again for new business. But it's a bit of a scandal that banks are just part of the problem at the moment, and they should be part of the solution. Nikki said something, and they only had 10 days to. They only had 10 days to Apple. What's that mean?
It was a typo. I typed Apple instead of apply.
Oh.
I corrected it afterwards.
I thought it was something to do with Apple, like having some bank or something, you know. I know they're taking over the world, but no,
they only published the call to apply on the 3rd of November, and people had to get their bids in by the 13th.
That was unlimited. Yes, yeah, unlimited. That was ridiculous. We had to get our we put in a bid, and literally we had 10 days to put the whole thing together, and you
could bid for something like 500,000. I mean, there's no way to spend money.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the government is obviously just throwing money this year, this financial year. There's the allocation for this financial year, and everything has to be spent by March. So it's yeah, it's ludicrous, really. It's a waste as well.
Yeah.
Marcia had a question.
It's not so much a question, more of a thank you. I found this session and yesterday's particularly useful. So I'm from the Association for Accredited Learning. So we've got that accreditation side, but it focuses on giving access to qualifications or bespoke accreditation. And we work lots with social enterprises, charities, and what I've taken from Nikki and Lucy's sessions was really, it's focusing on the impact of the service user, and I don't think we do that enough of telling the story of their journey. So it was just a thank you for your sessions.
Oh, thank you, Marcia. And I think, yeah, and it's what I've discovered running an accreditation is that there's lots of similarities of experience as well. So it's always quite nice to talk to other accreditation agencies, and you find the same old issues coming out.
Definitely.
Oh, I'm not
having chats at some point, Lucy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Marcia, it's really great that you're giving accreditation to people with lived experience as well, because people can sometimes be coming from a professional background, but sometimes they can't, and that those voices still have a real wealth. So yeah, I checked out your website and I just wanted to say that.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Rhiannon. That's great feedback.
Okay, great. So if there's no more questions. No? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lucy.